G'day, good morning and welcome to Herald Now. Great to have your company this morning. I'm Ryan Bridge. It is Monday, the 18th of August. On the show this morning, $1 trillion. Our national collective debt's about to hit a major milestone. That's 1 million. That's 1,000 billion. It's a big number. It's a load of money, much of it owed to foreigners. Former Finance Minister Stephen Joyce is here to break down what this means for our economy straight after news. The Americans and Trump's point man on Russia reckons Putin has agreed to allow a NATO-style defence pact between the Americans and the Ukrainians. We've got Zelensky heading to Washington for a meeting tomorrow, and the Ukrainian ambassador is here with us after 8. Also this morning, meeting your sperm donor dad. You hear some horror stories, but for one Kiwi woman, it was actually quite nice. Rachel Maher is here to share her story with us shortly. Plus, Airways Corporation boss on the flight disruptions over the weekend. Could there be compensation for airlines? And we'll look at your supermarket prices on the shelves shortly. First, here is Neva with your morning's headlines.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
We are well on our way to a collective $1 trillion in debt. In the year to the end of May, New Zealand hit just over $870 billion in gross debt, up 5.4% from almost $830 billion last year. It represents an average of just over $160,000 in raw debt for every person in the country. At the current rate of growth, New Zealand will hit the $1 trillion landmark inside the next 3 years. That rate has eased in the past 2 years as the government has sought to curb borrowing and the housing market has been flat. Correction staff say gangs are making prison violence worse and harder to deal with. On Saturday afternoon, 11 inmates in Waikato's Spring Hill Prison refused to leave an exercise yard, setting several small fires on the property. It took 2 hours for staff to secure the prisoners and extinguish the fires. Corrections Association President Floyd du Plessis is asking the government for equipment like launchers for handling violence.
Those are the types of things that we could use at distance to bring these things to a close very quickly and controlled and without risk of any injury to both staff and prisoners.
A Far North police officer is claiming racism and poor culture within the force is leading many Northland cops to leave. 90 extra police officers have travelled to the region to help relieve pressure. An anonymous officer has revealed an example of what they call systemic racism in the force. An email accidentally sent to all Northland staff by another cop describes an alleged offender in derogatory terms. District Commander Superintendent Matthew Surhoy says the email was highly unprofessional but maintains culture has never been better. 5 unions are attempting to take the government to court over pay equity changes. The Nurses Organisation, Public Service Association and 3 education unions are lodging a High Court challenge later this month over the government raising the threshold to lodge pay equity claims. PSA National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimon says they're asking for a declaration of inconsistency with the Bill of Rights Act.
If we are successful in gaining that, then there will be a report to Parliament and select committee consideration. It should never have come to this.
A foreign affairs expert says Donald Trump played into Vladimir Putin's hands at an Alaska summit over the weekend. The US and Russian presidents had a 3-hour discussion Saturday morning, but it did not result in a ceasefire in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is now scheduled to meet Trump in Washington, D.C. in the coming days. Otago University's Professor of International Relations, Robert Patman, says the pair will make little progress on their own. He says Trump must come to terms with the fact Putin will not stop the invasion unless he's forced to.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Chris Wood has scored twice in Nottingham Forest's opening game of the Premier League football season, helping them to a 3-1 home victory over Brentford. Golfer Ryan Fox's PGA Tour season is over. He's carded a final round, 1 under par 69 at the penultimate event in Maryland, but will remain outside the top 30 to contest the Tour Championship in Georgia this week. And the Tall Blacks have finished 4th at basketball's Asia Cup, losing the bronze medal playoff 79-73 to Iran in Saudi Arabia.
Great to have your company on this Monday morning. I went out for lunch to a cafe the other day and sat at a table served by a couple of different waiters who all seemed to have a similar vibe. They just did not seem to care, like at all. No smiling, no banter, no small talk, no polite conversation, just this blank look on their faces. TikTok tells us this is known as the Gen Z stare. We have one in our office. Zach here. See? Miserable, face like a slapped ass, never happy and never doing what they should be. You sit there and you think, did they hear me? Did they hear my order? And you're really polite about it because your mum would beat into you that you must, he's still going, your mum would beat into you that you must be nice and polite when you go out, of course, as we all try to be. But they did hear, they did get it, there's just no engagement. Face colder than a witch's tit. No refills on your water either. No, would you like another coffee, anything like that? Hello, is there anybody in there? You know, we're all sitting around the table going, is anyone home? And why is everyone moving so slowly? You should be rushing around looking busy, taking orders and filling coffees. When I was young, it was drilled into us. When you're waiting tables, when you're taking orders, you work your way out from doing the dishes to the front of the house and you get a bit of a pay rise. It's a great thing. You basically run around busy as a bee, trying to impress your boss, trying to make sure that your guests are won over. You take wagers on who might get a tip at the end of the day. Can I help you, sir? What more can I get you? You help the elderly into their seats. You basically bend over backwards to make everyone happy, right? And I'm not saying all Gen Z-ers are the same, obviously, and there are great experiences to be had at cafes and restaurants around the country. The question is, why is this happening? If indeed this is a phenomenon, which TikTok says it is, and if TikTok says it is, then it must be. Was it COVID? Was it everyone wearing masks? So much of how we communicate as human beings is through facial expressions. Maybe they've missed out on years of social cues and norms. Is it the smartphones? Is it both? Or maybe, just maybe, they don't give a shit. Maybe we have on our hands a generation of young people who don't really need to work or think that they need to be bothering with mundane things like work. Give me an email this morning. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Ryan at nzherald.co.nz, especially if you're a Gen Zer. In the meantime, Zach, get back to work. Thank you. Weather.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Another week and another round of wintry weather with snow down to low levels tomorrow. We'll have a cold southerly flow too, but today the weather comes from a couple of fronts moving northeast, bringing rain for the lower south. Persistent and heavy at times, but easing later today. Winds will be from the southwest and quite strong tonight for Southland. Now, most will eventually have rain here, developing first out west but reaching the east and north during the afternoon. Winds end up from the southwest. It's cloudy for the lower North Island. Showers arrive everywhere from around midday. Some heavy ones too, even thundery with hail for Taranaki and Taumaranui. Now, the morning is the better half of the day here, with showers returning this afternoon and spreading east tonight. Could be some heavy showers as well, with west to northwest winds. And showers for the upper north too. There is the risk of thunderstorms and hail for everyone here. Northwest winds pick up as well, gusting 90 k's with those thunderstorms tonight for Auckland.
Just gone 8 minutes after 7 now. Big weekend of talks. This, of course, Trump and Putin in Alaska over Ukraine. The US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, this is Trump's point man on Russia. He says that Trump and Putin agreed to a, quote, robust security guarantee for Ukraine. This is really significant. Witkoff says Russia's agreed to let the United States and other European countries have the same sort of NATO protection that you get. If you attack this country, we will come in behind. If one country gets attacked, the others respond. Take a look.
We agreed to robust security guarantees that I would describe as game-changing. We didn't think that we were anywhere close to agreeing to Article 5 protection from the United States, in legislative enshrinement within the Russian Federation, not to go after any other territory when the peace deal is codified. legislative enshrinement in the Russian Federation not to go after any other European countries and violate their sovereignty. So we agreed to, there was plenty more.
So this is a very significant development, but of course none of it involves Zelensky. You've got half of the European leaders heading to Washington the next 24 hours. Zelensky, for his part, isn't holding out hope of a summit to end the war with Russia. This is him speaking with a press conference in Brussels. He says there's no sign that Putin is agreeing to Donald Trump's idea of a three-way summit. He says they'll also need a ceasefire. You cannot negotiate a peace deal with a gun to your head.
We have to stop the killings. Putin has many demands, but we do not know all of them. And if there are really as many as we heard, then it will take time to go through them all. It's impossible to do this under the pressure of weapons. So it's necessary to cease fire.
Later in the program, after 8 o'clock, we'll have reaction from Ukraine's ambassador to New Zealand, Vasyl Miroshnichenko. He's here right after the 8 o'clock news, and we'll ask him for his thoughts on those comments from Trump. It is 10 after 7 now. New figures, this is in this morning's Herald, show we're destined to hit $1 trillion in national debt in the next 3 years. It's that number. Okay, it's a big one. It's a big boy. There's 12 zeros behind that one. So $1 trillion in the next 3 years. This is according to the Herald's Nation of Debt series. It starts today. You can check it out in your paper or online. $1 trillion, 1,000 billion. Current debt is about $872 billion. This is both public and private, so government borrowing, but also it's our mortgages, right? Business debt included. This is $163,000 per person. So what does this mean for us as a country, given that most of it's owed to foreigners? Stephen Joyce is the former finance minister, also chair of NZME, though here in the former finance capacity. Good morning.
Morning, Ryan. How are you?
Good, thank you. It is a big, scary number. Should we be scared by it?
Well, to some degree, yes. There are a couple of things that we should be aware of course. One is that we've had very big inflation over the last few years. So that means that $1 trillion in a couple of years' time won't be worth what it would have been in, say, 2016. So it was about 33% inflation that we've had since 2016. So your dollar's worth a lot less, and everybody knows that. And it's the same with debt. And then it really becomes a question of how much you spend, what you're spending it on. And so if you're investing for the future, it's a bit like a house. If you're borrowing money to make your house more valuable to then sell it, then that's a good thing. If you're just borrowing money to pay the bills, that's not such a good thing. And of course, the history is we've been borrowing to pay the bills a fair bit.
Yes. The sad thing about this also is just with the current economic environment, because business debt is arguably good, right? They're borrowing to expand and buying machinery and plants, and this is productivity, etc. But that's slowing down.
Well, and all this is a reflection of the last few years. In fact, if you look at these debt figures, they tell you the story of the COVID period and since then. So you've had, at one stage there at the beginning of COVID, we had almost zero interest rates. Everybody was encouraged to borrow. People borrowed a lot for housing. They basically bid up the prices that they were selling to each other. So that's been behind the very big increase in housing debt, which has now tailed off because now nobody's selling houses to each other because it's too expensive. And similarly, as you say, the businesses are not borrowing now because their balance sheets were stretched terribly during COVID. So that everybody who's getting money is trying to pay down debt. So you look at the farmers, for example, they're paying down debt at the moment. So people are saying, well, they're doing right. Why aren't they spending more? Well, the answer is they're repairing their balance sheets. And so are other businesses. So all your hospitality businesses, all your construction businesses, they're repairing their balance sheets at the moment, which means basically paying down debt rather than actually going into more debt.
For your average punter, does it matter that, you know, our mortgages are obviously, most of them are owned by foreign banks. You know, the difference between our country and a lot of others is that a lot of this debt we don't own ourselves, we owe to other countries.
Well, I don't think that matters because, in fact, if you want to grow your country, you've got to get the money from somewhere. If we only borrowed from ourselves, we'd be growing permanently very, very slowly. So, for example, if you look at power generation. We've got to invest heaps in power generation. If we rely only on the domestic companies to do that, then we'll be a long, long time before we get more electricity being generated. So I don't think that's a bad thing. It's more a question of what are you spending it on? And unfortunately, particularly in the case of government debt, that went up dramatically during the COVID period, and we didn't get a lot out of it in terms of things that we could point to that we've invested in for the future, like roading, like electricity, for example, all those sorts of things. So it all comes back to where are you borrowing the money? What are you borrowing the money for?
And this kind of feeds into this the political argument we're having at the moment about, your Keynesian style economics. Should this Treasury report we had a couple of weeks ago said it should be the Reserve Bank doing the heavy lifting when things are tough, which is what's happening at the moment, although it's taking its sweet time. But should you be, in terms of construction, just the government investing in building houses, even if they're the wrong size and in the wrong place? Do you just keep the money train going so that things tick over and you don't lose your workforce?
I don't think the government can keep the money train going at the moment because its debt also needs repair. Its balance sheet was stretched a lot during the COVID period, so its debt needs repair. So no, it's got to be predominantly private sector investment at this point. We've got to attract more money into the country with things like housing, but also infrastructure. And I think that's all coming, and we would all argue that it's a bit slow, that we need it to happen more quickly. And it's taken a long time for the machine in Wellington to gear up over the last 18 months, 2 years. So we want to see more of that, and that'll flow through into people's jobs and incomes.
Do you think the government should invest more in roading projects and infrastructure projects?
I think the government is actually investing quite a bit. The question is, are we seeing boots on the ground yet? And in a lot of cases, we're not. It's timing. So I can tell you from my knowledge of it, a lot of the people that design things and get consents and all those sorts of things are very busy, which indicates that there is work coming. It's just not.
So's Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
So what about, because the Reserve Bank doing the heavy lifting, fine. We started the cutting cycle almost exactly a year ago, and it takes a year or 18 months for that to flow through. So actually the first cuts, we've had, by Wednesday we should have had 250 basis points of cuts or something. So the ones we had a year ago when they started probably won't be feeling that until now. And the one that happens on Wednesday, we won't feel for another year.
Yeah, there's been a tendency in recent times to think that just, when the Reserve Bank changes interest rates up or down, that has an instant effect. It does a little bit on the way up, but it definitely doesn't on the way down. My view, and I've been public about this in my commentary pieces in the Herald, I think the Reserve Bank went too high and then started too late cutting. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're in the situation that we're in. But we're here.
So what should they do on Wednesday then? Because we also don't want to go too far the other way and overcook things again.
Well, that's right. There's a risk that inflation, you saw food price inflation at 5% last week. There's still inflation around the place. Some of that will be seasonal, but nevertheless it was there. So I think they'll probably cut on Wednesday, but they will be cautious about it because, as you say, the worst thing would be if inflation got away again, and then you're away pushing interest rates up. Imagine that happening in the next 12 months. That would not be exciting.
No, it wouldn't. So if you were Christopher Luxon right now, and I know you wouldn't want to be because you're out of the game, but what would you do? Just hold your nerve?
Well, I think to some degree you've got to hold your nerve because this is a tough period that you're going through, right? And this is the stage of the cycle where everybody is getting very, very twitchy and grumpy. So to some extent, yes, but actually I think you'd look at doing some more things and certainly accelerating the construction story because the tariffs in particular out of the US have slowed down our recovery. It just happened that our recovery cycle was just starting to head off and be positive. And then of course we had Liberation Day, and ever since we've been very cautious and unsure about investing. So he's probably got to do a few more things to encourage the economy to really get going again. It's starting to happen, but it is slow.
Slow, yeah. Hey, appreciate your time this morning. Just before you go, we need you to judge something for us this morning. Are you up for this?
Oh, I don't know.
Who's the better dancer? Have you seen it?
Well, I think the one that was less self-conscious was definitely Chris Luxon.
Yeah, look.
I think.
Is that a good thing?
I think so, because then you look at Chippy on the other side. We can't see him at the moment. He does look like a guy who doesn't want to be there, whereas Chris Luxon looks like somebody who's quite happy being there. But Chippy does not look happy.
Is it cringe when you have to do stuff like that?
Yep.
What would you rather, watch that 3 more times or another dildo on the cheek?
Well, Ryan, I'm still going through PTSD from that latter one.
We'll leave it there. That is the former Finance Minister on the show this morning. It is good to have you here as well. It has just gone 19 minutes after 7. That's Stephen Joyce. These sudden and controversial changes enacted by the government over pay equity are going to be challenged in the High Court. A coalition of 5 major unions are coming together to formally lodge the claim this week, and Fleur Fitzsimons is the PSA National Secretary joining us. Fleur, good morning.
Good morning.
What exactly are you challenging?
We are challenging the way and the nature of the changes to the Equal Pay Act. Government put them through under urgency without any prior signalling before the election and no select committee process. So we are saying to the High Court, we think this amounts to unlawful discrimination on the basis of sex, and that this process hasn't given New Zealand women the right to natural justice and fair legal process. So we're asking the High Court to issue what's called a declaration of inconsistency with New Zealand's Bill of Rights Act.
But the government has the right to use urgency, right?
Well, it's not just the urgency, it's the unlawful discrimination that women will face as a result of these changes to the Equal Pay Act. We say that pay inequity is unlawful discrimination against New Zealand women. And also the government went into effectively the Employment Relations Authority, who were about to hear claims, and cancelled those claims. You don't expect that kind of a retrospective approach in New Zealand, and that's why we're asking the High Court to take a look at it.
Fleur, how much are you guys going to be spending on legal fees?
We're getting some really good legal support, but it will be expensive. The problem is this issue is very important for New Zealand women. We have had tens of thousands of dollars missed out for every care and support worker because they haven't had access to pay equity. So this cost compared with the cost on women will be relatively small.
Have you tried yet to lodge new claims under the new system?
Our union won't be lodging new claims at this stage because the barriers to entry are too high, or the Act itself bans us from raising claims. Care and support workers, who are among the lowest paid workers who are seeking pay equity, can't even raise a claim till 2027 because of the bans in the Act. So we don't have a lot of faith that women will get pay equity through this process, and we won't be raising claims.
What do you say to those members who might argue that this is flogging a dead horse? You know, you're not going to overturn the law. The law is what it is. Get on with making new claims where you can.
We've had overwhelming support for our campaign in opposition to this. We know that New Zealand women are behind us, that union members are behind us. This issue is too important to leave any stone unturned, and we'll continue campaigning and fighting for this.
Appreciate your time this morning, Fleur. Best of luck in the court. It's Fleur Fitzsimons with us from Wellington, from the PSA. Time now 22 minutes after 7, and it's great to have your company. Always love your feedback, and we'll read it out on air. Ryan at nzherald.co.nz is the way you can do that. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, is New Zealand needing to reconsider nuclear power because of AI? That's next.
Are you considering a DIY kitchen but just not sure if you can do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. With You Do It DIY Kitchens, you're in safe hands. And the customer support team really know their stuff. After all, they design and manufacture everything here in New Zealand. You do it and you save money. So choose You Do It, the affordable DIY Kiwi kitchen with a great reputation. Visit newsroom.co.nz.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning.
Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, who got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life, I was a chef. Did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference, but 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now on your Monday morning. We'll get to Buenos Aires for the latest on the ABs. Of course, they have another test, but they've just not scraped through, but they won by a convincing margin. But there were some problems there. We're on the ground in Buenos Aires shortly. Right now, is it time for New Zealand to reconsider nuclear power? Do I have your attention? The Maxim Institute certainly thinks so. Their report suggests that New Zealand could be in for billions of dollars worth of investment, hundreds of high-value jobs, and the chance to secure ourselves in the global AI economy, but only if we increase energy production. They're calling on the government to reconsider nuclear energy, amongst other things, in a bid to attract global investors and hopefully drive down power prices here. Thomas Scrimger is a researcher with Maxim and joins us this morning. Good morning.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
We've got earthquakes. Isn't that why we don't do nuclear?
Well, it's an interesting one you bring up because a lot of people are concerned about things like earthquakes with nuclear power. But the best example of this is Japan, right? They're a country that, similar to us, is on the ring of fire, very earthquake prone.
Yeah, well, Fukushima.
Exactly, Fukushima. 2011, they had an earthquake followed by a tsunami. And there was this significant concern about that. Is this going to be safe? And ultimately, they had a nuclear power station shut down and people were worried about the harms. But the United Nations report, the University of Tokyo, there were tens of thousands of lives lost from that earthquake, none of them from nuclear power. There has been no attributable death to nuclear power in Japan. But because they were concerned about nuclear power in the wake of that earthquake, they started dialing back their investment, and they have fully reversed that. Japan is all in on nuclear power, one of 30 countries that has pledged to triple nuclear power production by 2050 globally.
What about geothermal? Everyone goes on in New Zealand about geothermal and the stuff that the deeper you go, the hotter it gets, and the more effective it is. Can we not look down instead of nuclear?
Yeah, it's great to bring up. So conventional geothermal is about 18% of our power. And if you do the modelling, we could probably double that. So conventional geothermal is good. And the government has just invested in supercritical geothermal, going deeper, more power. That's a great option. We should be looking at all options for nuclear, for energy rather, because what we want is energy abundance. We don't want to hold our nose and say we don't want to do that kind of energy. We want all types of power production because it is that abundance which brings down prices.
But if you bring the prices down too low, then no one wants to invest, surely.
Well,
because you need a high price in order for it to be a profitable thing to do.
So what we need is a competitive market. We don't need to sit around and decide what is the price looking in the abstract, but what we want to do is create the conditions where all players can enter into the market. What we currently have is some modes of production are preferred and some aren't allowed to enter in at all. So if we open up to things like nuclear and supercritical geothermal, and we have hydro and solar and wind, and they're all competing on the open market, that's how we get an affordable, efficient energy market.
Okay, what about, because this is all about AI, which obviously takes up vast quantities of electricity to power, and we're using it more and more, and we will be using it more and more. How much do we need, based on our current consumption, what will AI do to that consumption, do you estimate?
Well, to give a sense of the scale already, artificial intelligence is 2% of global electricity consumption already, about 10 times New Zealand's annual electricity consumption, and that's only projected to go up. From the 22 numbers was about the 10 times New Zealand figure. That will double by the end of next year, and there is no end in sight. Because these things can be rolled out so quickly, AI uses its power through data centres, big warehouses of computers. It takes 12 to 18 months to build one of those computers. It takes 3 to 7 years to build the power needed to run them. And so we're having this shortfall in global electricity production. So there's no ceiling on this.
All right, fascinating stuff, Thomas. Great to have you in the studio for a chat. Thomas
for having me.
is with us from the Maxim Institute. He's a researcher there talking nuclear power. That'll be a good one for your feedback. Ryan at nzherald.co.nz, 28 minutes after 7. Right, the All Blacks opened their Rugby Championship campaign by beating the Argies 41-24 in Cordoba yesterday morning. The scoreline was good. The performance, a bit patchy. Herald senior sports reporter Liam Napier was at the game and he's with us from Buenos Aires. Good morning.
Buenos dias, Ryan.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. What did you make of the game sideline?
Well, it was a brilliant atmosphere in Cordoba, the All Blacks' first time there in 30 years, but the performance itself was a bit patchy. 6 tries, bonus point 1 is a great start to their Rugby Championship campaign as they try and reclaim the title, but a great first half performance, but then they allowed the Pumas back into the match and had some real scares before finishing them off with 2 late tries.
What do you put that down to, the shaky second half?
Discipline was a big issue, Ryan. 11 penalties, but I think 7 of those in the second half, including 2 yellow cards, and that proved really costly. That allowed the Pumas to come back to revive their crowd. They really got behind them, and they closed their margin from 21 points at halftime down to 7 before the All Blacks regained their composure. So big focus will be on discipline and finishing those chances when they come.
And changes for the second test, what are you expecting?
Yeah, I think Wallace Atiti and Tamaiti Williams will be 2 massive ins for the All Blacks in their forward pack. We haven't seen them for a number of weeks, so that'll really boost the All Blacks. Elsewhere, there could be other changes. Maybe Simon Parker, a debut in the offering. Chiefs loose forwards, possibly off the bench. But by and large, I think Scott Robertson will largely stick with his first choice team and try and really build that momentum and confidence before coming home for 2 tests against the Springboks.
Liam, we had Ian Jones on the show on Friday and he was just talking about the Argentinian fans, comparing them to the French in terms of the passion. What's it like being there?
Yeah, it's amazing. The Latin people are hugely emotional, passionate, and it's a football-mad country, so they bring that vibrancy to any other sport, and it's hard to compare to any other sporting atmosphere. They get there early, they sing, they chant, they whistle, but they're also very respectful. They were shushing everybody else when the haka was on. They really wanted to soak that in, but it was a real event for the Cordoba people, and I'm sure it'll be the same. It's sold out. They had 55,000 in Cordoba, and the test this weekend, about the same 50,000. It's already sold out, so there'll be a lot of excitement around having the All Blacks. And even though it's a football-mad city and a massive city, Buenos Aires, come game day, that place will be rocking again.
Great nightlife in Buenos Aires. I hope you've got to enjoy some. Do the ABs go out? I mean, obviously, I don't imagine they would after this test, but do the ABs still go out and have a beer after a game?
I think they tend to have a couple of quiets more towards the end of the tournament. They might let their hair down and enjoy themselves, but I think we'll be coming back eating grass and mooing because the diet is very meat heavy, so definitely enjoying a few steaks and vinos along the way.
Nice one. Enjoy, Liam. Thank you. Liam, I know you're working too. I don't want to make it sound like a holiday. That is Liam Napier, Herald Sports senior journalist with us. I love the banner we had there. Argentinian fans are very emotional. I'm sure they'll love that. You're watching Herald Now. It is 7:30, time for headlines with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
We are well on our way to a collective $1 trillion in debt. In the year to the end of May, New Zealand hit just over $870 billion in gross debt, up 5.4% from almost $830 billion last year. It represents an average of just over $160,000 in raw debt for every person in the country. At the current rate of growth, New Zealand will hit the $1 trillion landmark inside the next 3 years. That rate has eased in the past 2 years as the government has sought to curb borrowing and the housing market has been flat. Correction staff say gangs are making prison violence worse and harder to deal with. On Saturday afternoon, 11 inmates in Waikato's Spring Hill Prison refused to leave an exercise yard, setting several small fires on the property. It took 2 hours for staff to secure the prisoners and extinguish the fires. Corrections Association President Floyd du Plessis is asking the government for equipment like launchers for handling violence.
Those are the types of things that we could use at distance to bring these things to a close very quickly and controlled and without risk of any injury to both staff and prisoners.
A Far North police officer is claiming racism and poor culture within the force is leading many Northland cops to leave. 90 extra police officers have travelled to the region to help relieve pressure. An anonymous officer has revealed an example of what they call systemic racism in the force. An email accidentally sent to all Northland staff by another cop describes an alleged offender in derogatory terms. District Commander Superintendent Matthew Surhoy says the email was highly unprofessional but maintains culture has never been better. 5 unions are attempting to take the government to court over pay equity changes. The Nurses Organisation, Public Service Association and 3 education unions are lodging a High Court challenge later this month over the government raising the threshold to lodge pay equity claims. PSA National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimon says they're asking for a declaration of inconsistency with the Bill of Rights Act.
If we are successful in gaining that, then there will be a report to Parliament and select committee consideration. It should never have come to this.
A foreign affairs expert says Donald Trump played into Vladimir Putin's hands at an Alaska summit over the weekend. The US and Russian presidents had a 3-hour discussion Saturday morning, but it did not result in a ceasefire in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is now scheduled to meet Trump in Washington, D.C. in the coming days. Otago University's Professor of International Relations, Robert Patman, says the pair will make little progress on their own. He says Trump must come to terms with the fact Putin will not stop the invasion unless he's forced to.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Chris Wood has scored twice in Nottingham Forest's opening game of the Premier League football season, helping them to a 3-1 home victory over Brentford. Golfer Ryan Fox's PGA Tour season is over. He's carded a final round, 1 under par 69 at the penultimate event in Maryland, but will remain outside the top 30 to contest the Tour Championship in Georgia this week. And the Tall Blacks have finished 4th at basketball's Asia Cup, losing the bronze medal playoff 79-73 to Iran in Saudi Arabia.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Another week and another round of wintry weather with snow down to low levels tomorrow. We'll have a cold southerly flow too, but today the weather comes from a couple of fronts moving northeast, bringing rain for the lower south. Persistent and heavy at times, but easing later today. Winds will be from the southwest and quite strong tonight for Southland. Now, most will eventually have rain here, developing first out west but reaching the east and north during the afternoon. Winds end up from the southwest. It's cloudy for the lower North Island. Showers arrive everywhere from around midday. Some heavy ones too, even thundery with hail for Taranaki and Taumaranui. Now, the morning is the better half of the day here, with showers returning this afternoon and spreading east tonight. Could be some heavy showers as well, with west to northwest winds. And showers for the upper north too. There is the risk of thunderstorms and hail for everyone here. Northwest winds pick up as well, gusting 90 k's with those thunderstorms tonight for Auckland.
You're watching Herald Now. Great to have your company this Monday morning, 23 minutes away from 8 o'clock, which means it's time to talk business with our partners 2 Degrees. Big week this week for our markets and for anyone who's got a mortgage, with the Reserve Bank reviewing the cash rate as some of our biggest companies also report their results. Garth Bray, Business Desk with us. Hey, Garth.
Hey, Ryan.
So we are expecting a 25 basis point cut down to 3%.
You'd have to say so, but it's so priced in that I guess most of the interest is like the forward forecast, like where do we see the market, the rates heading after that, and what sort of terminal rate do we expect? I mean, you've got some picking it'll get as low as 2.75 later this year or by early next year. Others like Kiwibank pushing for 2.5 and saying that conditions are such that really the Reserve Bank maybe needs to consider a stimulatory rather than a neutral position. And I guess that's probably, given that we've got a full statement with an explanation from the governor or acting governor, Wednesday, that's probably where people are putting most of their interest in. And anyone that's borrowing or anyone that's looking to invest and so on for business and so on are going to be pretty keyed into that result.
So that would be, because 3 is basically neutral, right? So once you start getting below 3, you start to actually give the economy a tickle up.
There's lots of argument about where the neutral rate is, I guess, but you'd be fair to say, yes, that's the case, and that's the ones that are pushing for some stimulus and saying, hey, look, okay, we've had some positive PMI, the manufacturing index numbers out on Friday. It's finally in positive territory, I think, 52.8. So
took a while.
Took a while, didn't it? And that's the whole problem. This has all been slow coming. But are we finally starting to see that sense of recovery coming through in company earnings that'll be this week? Or is it still just we need a bit more puff there to get the fire going?
So what are we seeing from company earnings? We've got A2 Milk today, right?
Yeah, and obviously they're a big story. Their share price has just gone gangbusters since the start of the year, up about 40% on expectations that they'll declare something like a 200 million profit. I think the market will be expecting it to show that 192. Any less than that, it's going to be a bit upset. But the real question is, it's got $1 billion worth of cash it's sitting on. Is it finally going to get into the market of manufacturing rather than sort of marketing and buying milk powder for its infant formula chains and so on? And there's a bit of talk around that the Yashili plant, which is down in Pukano, next door to Sinlay, that could be one that it targets to buy. Market loves a deal. So that one's been talked about for a while. We'll see where it gets to. They're doing great guns in China, and their peers like Danone and others have been reporting strong results. And they are looking at bringing 50 franchised indoor clubs down under, and 6 of those here to New Zealand. I think the first one's in Sydney sometime in the next year. And that's like 1,500 to 3,000 square metres of warehouse space. And apparently, the Pickleball New Zealand's already been running for 8 years here, and they're after Sports New Zealand accreditation for funding. They've got 230 people signed up for an Open in September. So, there's this interesting groundswell.
Yeah, people love it. People who play it love it.
Yeah. Massive. This club's like this. It's like 500 outlets in North America. They're going to do another 500 in Canada and Japan over the next couple of years. So it's booming.
Big business, and you don't have to run as far as tennis, which is the beauty of it, right? Garth, good to see you as always. Have a great day. Garth Bray, Business Desk. Thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees. We chat business every day. Right, it is 19 minutes away from 8. How can you know who you are if you don't know where you came from? That's the question that spurred Herald reporter Rachel Mayer to embark on a journey to find the other half of her DNA. Take a look.
I was 8 years old when I was told I was donor conceived. My parents sat my twin sister, my older brother, and me down on their bed and explained how babies were normally made and then how we were made. They showed us 3 pieces of paper with details like eye colour, blue like our dad's. They said he was tall, not like our dad, but he had the same dark hair and olive skin. They pointed out a crucial word, identifiable, and told us one day if we wanted to meet him, we could. I have just received an email from Fertility Associates saying that they've found my donor. My feelings right now, I'm more anxious than I thought I would be, also a lot more excited than I thought I would be. I have just received, minutes ago, my email back for my letter from the guy. Hi Rachel, my name is Wayne, and I would like to thank you for reaching out and connecting. When I heard the news that you were searching, I was overwhelmed and very excited. That's something I've always hoped for was finally starting to bear fruit. A little bit about me, I'm a blue-eyed Virgo, standing 6'3". That's where my height comes from. I am young and active 64-year-old. Thank you once again for making the first step, and I look forward to seeing what the future holds for us all. All the very best, Wayne. I didn't at all think I'd get this emotional, but he just seems like the nicest guy, and it is such a relief to know that half of my genetic makeup sounds like someone who's just so lovely. Oh, I really can't explain this feeling. I guess I'll leave the video there. Stay tuned. Donor Diaries update. Tomorrow is the big day. There are weird questions that I have. I mean, what do you wear to something like this? How do you do your makeup? What if he doesn't like me? I have this weird kind of thing where I just really want to impress him and him to be impressed by me and the woman I have become. I have arrived at Mission Bay. I am walking to meet my sister, and then we're meeting with my brother, and then we're going to walk to the water fountain. Wayne has just messaged saying he's already here, so I kind of hope I don't run into him before I meet up with my siblings, but I don't think I will. I see him.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Rachel's at the desk. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Ryan.
What was he like?
Oh, he's so cool, like just beyond my wildest expectations. You know, you never know what you're going to meet the other side. He is half of my genetics, but he's a complete stranger. One thing I really didn't expect was him to have my exact same eyes. We have the same set teeth, like we look so similar. There are lots of similarities in personality, especially with my him and my twin sister. It is absolutely nuts. It's crazy.
I wasn't surprised to hear you say that he was really tall, because you're quite tall.
Yes, indeed. Actually, when we were growing up, so we had the 3 pieces of paper that told us about his, just about basic details on him. And there was an error in that and said he was much shorter than he actually was. And so we were very confused and things, and then it got corrected, and yeah, so he is quite tall.
Wow. So you and your siblings all have the same biological father?
Yes.
And Wayne?
Yeah.
How did it feel? We were seeing images of both of you sitting together. What was that like?
Oh, it's really, really hard to explain. I mean, if you haven't been through that experience, it's very, very hard to describe the mixture of anxiety and excitement. And there was quite a weird bond between us, despite being a perfect stranger. There was definitely some kind of a natural bond that formed almost instantly. I instantly felt comfortable around him. It was, yeah, I don't want to keep on using the word weird and strange, but that's the only words I have right now.
You said in the piece that you were 8 years old when you were told by your parents that a donor had been used. How do you feel ethically about what age a parent should do that?
Yeah, so 8 years old is the recommended age by all the experts. They think it's when you have a fair idea of what biology is and genetics and, you know, mum and dad created you. Any earlier is recommended. You know, they don't really understand it, the concept of genetics and things like that. I don't think you should wait any longer. I'm very pleased and very glad we found out very early on. And so it was just such a natural, normal thing growing up for us.
What was the deal with getting his permission to know who he was, or had he already given that permission? What does the law say about that?
The law is pretty fast and loose. There is different processes. My parents use fertility associates, and they have their own process. So I sent Wayne a letter through them, and then they go through their records and try find him. And then he sends back a letter again to me through them, and then you can decide from there if you want contact, what you want that contact to be. Some people keep it at the letters, a few photos, other people meet like us. And now I have 2 half siblings just floating out there, also conceived using Wayne's sperm. And so if they reach out to fertility associates, they can now meet me if possible.
Do you walk down the street? Because how far away from you did Wayne live? Not far.
So yeah, we grew up in Whangarei, and he was in the Waikato. And we've realised there are several instances where we probably would have been in the same place at the same time. But I truly think, I mean, we look too similar. I feel like if I saw him walking down the street, I would have been like, that's
double take.
Yeah.
But same thing with your half siblings, right? Do you walk around kind of looking in crowds?
Well, I in my written piece in the Herald on Sunday, I did write about the dilemmas I faced dating. It's such a terrifying experience. I found out that I had a half brother and a half sister. And so I just looked at what years they were born and exclusively didn't date people born in those years, because that's the only set information that I had.
Or go for short guys. You can't lose.
Can't lose.
So when you were told when you were 8, did it make you feel different? Did it make you, I don't know, did it burden you in any way, or did it make your childhood feel different? Anything like that?
It wasn't earth-shattering to me at that age. I have a dad. He is like an incredible, incredible dad. We're so close. But it was when I was like 11 that I really started to have questions. I started to have kind of fears of what could be out there, questions of who I am and things like that. And it took a lot of guts, because the reason I've shared this story was when you look up research on other people meeting their sperm donors, it's those horror stories of my dad was a crazed scientist who fathered 500 children, or I accidentally married my half-brother. And so I was really anxious in this process that I might face that same reality. I just wanted to share this story because mine was a really, really positive experience and a mess of journalism about really, really terrible ones.
What would you say to Wayne? Thank you.
Oh, I have thanked him countless times. We're still in touch. We call each other Double D for donor dad and donor daughter. And we email all the time. We have a little group chat with us, with him and my siblings. It's really cool.
Very cool indeed. Rachel, thanks for sharing. I mean, I know it's your job to write things and, be in the media, but thank you for sharing it with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Rachel Mayer with us with an incredible story and one that I'm sure a lot of people at home can relate to, 11 minutes away from 8 o'clock. Shop to global conditions. That's the message from Foodstuffs this week, as figures show a number of products defied inflationary pressures. While beef, lamb and butter, we know this story, rose by 30% or more year on year, pork, chicken and olive oil actually came down in price. So the message from Foodstuffs is, well, there are two. There are actually a couple here, but one of them is shop seasonally, and the number that is published by Stats NZ isn't the same number they would use. Chris Quinn is Foodstuffs New Zealand Managing Director and joins us this morning. Chris, good morning.
Kia ora, how are you?
Good, thank you. So we had that 5% food price inflation number on Friday. You say it should be 3.4, 3.5. Why?
So the 3.4%, Ryan, is for Foodstuff stores. So that's for our Pack and Save New World and Foursquare stores. That is the retail price increase that we've seen year on year in our stores. It also excludes some of the eating out numbers, so the restaurant and takeaway numbers that sit in the overall food price inflation number. So what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, we recognise what's going on for New Zealand households overall could be that 5% increase. What we're trying to do is, lower the effect of that on our customers by doing everything we can to not pass through all of these cost increases.
People might look at that and say, well, I'll believe Stats NZ over your numbers, Chris, because we can't, we don't have access to them, the data.
Yeah, look, they're different numbers, not disagreeing numbers. So, they measure an entire market, all of the food retailers, all of the takeaway food and restaurant food. We are publishing something that is about Foodstuffs retail stores.
What's your margin on butter?
I wish there was some margin on butter. We've been reasonably public about this. We choose to invest in some of the core butter products like Pam's to make sure that it is available to New Zealanders. It's something that is closer to affordable, although everyone recognises how much it's gone up. But look, we are investing in some of our butter products to make sure that they sit at a fair price on shelf as much as we can. That means we lose money on some of them.
You're losing money on butter. So at the moment you're telling me that Foodstuffs is not making money on butter?
On some of the butter products, that's correct. The most volume moving ones, the private label ones, tend to be where we do that.
Right. And what's your margin on the others?
Oh, it's a mix across them, Brian. So I don't have a margin number with that excluded. But there is a range of products in butter. There's probably 15 to 20 different products. We make, at the end of the day, Ryan, I guess the key number is when you add it all up across our supermarkets, we make 3.6 cents out of every dollar in profit after tax.
The government's looking at a whole bunch of stuff to try and, they are scapegoating the supermarket industry, no doubt about it. And they're looking at potential separation, potentially making you sell stores, all these types of things. And I know you guys are in a fight to stop that from happening. What would you do if they did?
Well, firstly, we firmly don't believe that will make sense from a New Zealand consumer point of view. The fundamental mission is how do we make food prices as affordable as possible in New Zealand? And fascinating, we had a look at some information that was shared in the recent annual grocery report. And whilst, yes, we sit slightly above the average OECD line, we sit as the lowest prices of countries that have less than 20 million people. So you've got to recognise that with a country same size as Japan with only 5.4 million people, you have some challenges around scale and cost. And when you know that 68 cents of every dollar is the cost of the product to us, then when you look at where could we make a difference to food price, you've got to look at the cost of doing business in the whole of New Zealand. And something like making organisations smaller with less scale and more overhead would not help the cost of doing business in New Zealand from a retail point of view. We've shared with the government our view about what would help, and we maintain that those are the things that will help lower food prices.
When did you share that with the government?
So in the request for information that the Minister put out back at the end of March, we responded to that over about a 6-week period, and the government have that now.
Have you heard back from them yet? Are you any closer to knowing their thinking on it, on Nicola Willis's thinking on it yet?
Look, no, we don't know any outcomes. That's for the Minister, of course. We've been engaged positively with some of the officials and sharing the information behind the suggestions we made to see if there are things there that can make sense from the point of view of how do we make it easier to do business across New Zealand? How do we make that turn up in food price for our customers?
Like what?
So the regulations that we have, making sure all of them benefit consumers, allowing us to be a national organisation so that we can spread our overhead costs, looking at what it costs to get goods into this country, and are New Zealanders being treated fairly by all of the global players. There's some of the suggestions that we've made.
Chris, if she comes down like a ton of bricks and says, nah, we're going to break you up, we're going to make you sell stores, what do? Legal? You take the legal route?
Oh, absolutely. On behalf of our cooperative, which is full of family-owned individual stores, and that's something I think a lot of people forget when all the rhetoric and commentary is talked about. This is nationally a collection of 532 family-owned businesses who act in a co-op because that is the way for them to be efficient. They act in 2 co-ops today. So the thought that you would take those businesses off, those families, and, give it to someone else just doesn't make sense for a New Zealand business in an industry that's important, where we think having a New Zealand-owned competitor actually makes a lot of sense.
So you would fight hammer and nail, tooth and nail?
Well, we would stand up for our family-owned businesses. Absolutely, we would.
All right. Hey, appreciate your time this morning, Chris. Thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Chris Quinn, who is Foodstuffs New Zealand Managing Director. Time now is 5 away from 8, and you're watching Herald Now. Coming up next, Zoe Wallace with the Monday Market Update, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. And then after 8 o'clock, we'll have news, and the Ukrainian ambassador is with us. His reaction to the latest from Trump and Witkoff out of the White House on these peace talks, potential peace talks over Ukraine.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
We've done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now. Great to have your company. If you saw the news at the weekend, you would have seen a whole bunch of flights were disrupted by air traffic control issues. We have spoken to a couple of pilots about this, and they have some pretty big questions. It was a whole hour that the thing was out, basically. There was a backup system, but it was a whole hour that it was out. And what would happen if one of those planes got into trouble during that hour? It's a very important question, and we've got the air traffic control guys on the show after 8 to ask. Right now, it's time for Monday Morning Markets. Thanks to our partners, Forsyth Barr. Zoe Wallace, investment strategist there, is with us again. Morning, Zoe.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to see you, and it'll be good to see a cut to the OCR come Wednesday.
Absolutely. We are looking for a 25 basis point cut. And look, I think that's very much baked into market expectations, and the vast majority of economists also calling for 25. The big question will be, though, what happens after that, I think. So what you've seen in the data since the last meeting in July has essentially been that inflation pressure in the near term looks like it's rising. You know, we had food prices up 5% year on year. That's expected to feed through to annual CPI hitting about 3%, which is very much the upper part of the RBNZ's 1 to 3% target range. However, that's very much a near-term issue, and we do expect inflation to still fall back next year, which should mean that the Reserve Bank can continue on the easing path. When you look at economic growth over the last quarter, you know, I think there's clear evidence that Q2 is likely to be pretty weak or even negative GDP growth. But we've had some early indications that things are starting to tick up a little bit, and that's been coming through in both company reports and some of the more timely economic data that hopefully the second half of this year should be looking somewhat better. But we still expect the Reserve Bank to cut this week and then probably deliver one more 25 basis point rate cut.
Because best case scenario, it would just be like a little Q2 blip post Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, right?
Yeah, look, and I think you did see that clearly coming through and having an impact on business and consumer confidence. Headlines about inflation heading higher again, what that meant for global trade and what that meant for, you know, the global economy. We were talking about an outright global economic recession there for, you know, most of April. That obviously has been eased, concerns around that, and we are seeing, you know, sentiment start to come back. As I mentioned, we're starting to see, you know, consumers feel a little bit more comfortable opening their wallets. It's also worth noting that, you know, about 50% of mortgage debt is rolling off in the next 6 months, about 80% in the next year. So consumers are going to get those benefits of rolling on to lower interest rates in the next 6 to 12 months. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, though, it does also hurt those who have money in the bank and savings, and about 80% of people are either on a short-term fixed rate or actually on floating rates, which means the moment the RBNZ cuts, unfortunately, they feel that on the other side of the savings balance as well.
Yeah, good point. Now, you mentioned reporting season both here and across the Tasman as well. What updates do you have for us on that?
Yeah, so look, Aussie reporting season so far has been largely in line with expectations, I would say. Everyone going into it, you know, the consensus was for negative earnings per share growth of around 2.5%, and that seems to be about where we're tracking. Despite that, we are seeing, you know, the Australian equity market alongside the US did hit a new record high at the end of last week. So we're still seeing a fair bit of positivity come through in terms of what share prices have been doing. And I think markets are taking it in their stride so far. In terms of New Zealand as well, obviously we've got really kicking into earnest the local reporting season this week, and that starts with Freightways and A2 Milk out today. We're expecting a bit of a mixed bag, but generally a slightly positive tilt on this earnings season as we head into a more optimistic outlook, hopefully towards the end of this year and into early next.
We're all crossing our fingers and toes, Zoe. Thank you. Good to see you. Zoe Wallace, investment strategist at Forsyth Barr, and we chat markets every Monday with Zoe, thanks to our partners, Forsyth Barr. Right now, it is 8 o'clock. Kia ora, good morning and welcome to Herald Now. I'm Ryan Bridge. It's Monday, the 18th of August. Great to have your company this morning. On the show this hour, if you hit them, we'll hit you. The Americans say Putin has committed to robust security guarantees for Ukraine. The Americans are bullish on this. The Ukrainians cautious. Ahead of tomorrow's Zelensky-Trump meeting at the White House, the Ukrainian ambassador is live with us next. There was aviation chaos in our skies over the weekend. Planes turned around, airspace closed, and investigations being launched, multiple. In fact, just what happened? The Airways boss fronts to explain. And who's a good boy? We're looking for the best working dog in the country, and we'll meet a clever canine who's got a rather peculiar talent. First, here is the rest of your morning's headlines with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
We are well on our way to a collective $1 trillion in debt. In the year to the end of May, New Zealand hit just over $870 billion in gross debt, up 5.4% from almost $830 billion last year. It represents an average of just over $160,000 in raw debt for every person in the country. At the current rate of growth, New Zealand will hit the $1 trillion landmark inside the next 3 years. That rate has eased in the past 2 years as the government has sought to curb borrowing and the housing market has been flat. Correction staff say gangs are making prison violence worse and harder to deal with. On Saturday afternoon, 11 inmates in Waikato's Spring Hill prison refused to leave an exercise yard, setting several small fires on the property. It took 2 hours for staff to secure the prisoners and extinguish the fires. Corrections Association President Floyd du Plessis is asking the government for equipment like launchers for handling violence.
Those are the types of things that we could use at distance to bring these things to a close very quickly and controlled and without risk of any injury to both staff and prisoners.
A Far North police officer is claiming racism and poor culture within the force is leading many Northland cops to leave. 90 extra police officers have travelled to the region to help relieve pressure. An anonymous officer has revealed an example of what they call systemic racism in the force. An email accidentally sent to all Northland staff by another cop describes an alleged offender in derogatory terms. District Commander Superintendent Matthew Surhoy says the email was highly unprofessional but maintains culture has never been better. 5 unions are attempting to take the government to court over pay equity changes. The Nurses Organisation, Public Service Association and 3 education unions are lodging a High Court challenge later this month over the government raising the threshold to lodge pay equity claims. PSA National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimon says they're asking for a declaration of inconsistency with the Bill of Rights Act.
If we are successful in gaining that, then there will be a report to Parliament and select committee consideration. It should never have come to this.
A foreign affairs expert says Donald Trump played into Vladimir Putin's hands at an Alaska summit over the weekend. The US and Russian presidents had a 3-hour discussion Saturday morning, but it did not result in a ceasefire in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is now scheduled to meet Trump in Washington, D.C. in the coming days. Otago University's Professor of International Relations, Robert Patman, says the pair will make little progress on their own. He says Trump must come to terms with the fact Putin will not stop the invasion unless he's forced to.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Chris Wood has scored twice in Nottingham Forest's opening game of the Premier League football season, helping them to a 3-1 home victory over Brentford. Golfer Ryan Fox's PGA Tour season is over. He's carded a final round, 1 under par 69 at the penultimate event in Maryland, but will remain outside the top 30 to contest the Tour Championship in Georgia this week. And the Tall Blacks have finished 4th at basketball's Asia Cup, losing the bronze medal playoff 79-73 to Iran in Saudi Arabia.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Another week and another round of wintry weather with snow down to low levels tomorrow. We'll have a cold southerly flow too, but today the weather comes from a couple of fronts moving northeast, bringing rain for the lower south. Persistent and heavy at times, but easing later today. Winds will be from the southwest and quite strong tonight for Southland. Now, most will eventually have rain here, developing first out west but reaching the east and north during the afternoon. Winds end up from the southwest. It's cloudy for the lower North Island. Showers arrive everywhere from around midday. Some heavy ones too, even thundery with hail for Taranaki and Taumaranui. Now, the morning is the better half of the day here, with showers returning this afternoon and spreading east tonight. Could be some heavy showers as well, with west to northwest winds. And showers for the upper north too. There is the risk of thunderstorms and hail for everyone here. Northwest winds pick up as well, gusting 90 k's with those thunderstorms tonight for Auckland.
You're watching Herald Now on your Monday morning, just gone 8 minutes after 8. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, flanked by European leaders, will hold crucial talks at the White House tomorrow morning our time over the future of Ukraine. Overnight, we heard more about that discussion between Donald Trump and the Russian President Putin in Alaska at the weekend. Steve Witkoff, this is Trump's point man on Russia. He says Russia has agreed to let the United States and other European countries do some sort of NATO Article 5 protection deal where if one country is attacked, i.e. Ukraine, by Russia, then the United States could be compelled to respond.
To robust security guarantees that I would describe as game-changing. We didn't think that we were anywhere close to agreeing to Article 5 protection from the United States, in legislative enshrinement within the Russian Federation, not to go after any other territory when the peace deal is codified, legislative enshrinement in the Russian Federation, not to go after any other European countries and violate their sovereignty. So we agreed to, there was plenty more.
That was Steve Witkoff on CNN overnight. Vasyl Miroshnichenko is the Ukrainian ambassador to Australia and New Zealand. He's a friend of this program, been on many times before. It's a pleasure to have you back, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you for being with me.
Good morning, Ryan.
First of all, what did you think seeing Putin up there on stage, standing next to the most powerful man on the planet?
We have to go back to basics. In 2014, Russia invaded Ukraine. They grabbed Crimea, started the war in Donbass. They got emboldened by the weak reaction to what they've done. And 8 years later, they came back with a much bigger war, with a goal of seizing Crimea in 7 days and occupying Ukraine in 3 weeks. And now what Russians understand, they understand power, they understand strengths. So every time they see a weakness, they're going to jump on it. So you shouldn't be asking me, Ryan, how I felt. You should probably ask my friend whose son lost his leg and barely survived in the war. You can also ask that woman in Bucha who was gang raped by the Russian soldiers. So you can ask, a wife of my classmate who buried her husband 3 weeks ago. I mean, that's probably would be the best people to ask about how they felt, because I'm an ambassador. My job is to convey a message. And we believe that we can achieve peace by having America involved, by having Europe involved. And it's great news that President Zelensky will be together with a team of the Europeans going to Washington for the meeting with President Trump on Monday.
The people that you're talking about, the people of Ukraine who have endured all of this hell on earth, what is their message about giving up territory, about compromising on territory, especially given that development that if what Witkoff says is true, that that Putin would be open to some kind of protection from the United States?
The security architecture of Europe will definitely shape and will have a major impact on the security architecture of Indo-Pacific. So what do we have here? We have a nuclear country, which is a permanent member of the UN Security Council, which decided to change borders by force. They start a war, which is an act of aggression, and they wage the largest war in Europe that Europe has seen in 80 years. And for that act of aggression, they potentially could be rewarded by keeping 20% of the Ukrainian sovereign territory. So that creates a blueprint for any other authoritarian leader globally to follow the same path. Because if Russians can do it, then probably anybody else can do it, and we will gonna go into a very dangerous world. Certainly, we are interested in getting a ceasefire. We're interested in achieving peace, but that peace should be achieved not at the expense of the global security, not at the expense of New Zealand security, because we are all in the same boat. Because if we go into the world of a jungle where the might is right, a small countries, small democracies don't have a chance of surviving. And we have to keep it in mind of where we are moving.
So there would be, under no circumstances, it would be a red line, a bottom line, would any territory be given up in order to achieve peace?
Well, technically, that territory can end up under the Russian occupation. which will never be recognized by Ukraine or anybody else, but it cannot be ceded as a sovereign territory to Russia. And that's very important to keep it in mind. As you remember, Baltic nations, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, they were under the Soviet occupation for 50 years. They had their own governments in place, and they were never recognized as part of the Soviet Union. So we may end up with having a similar arrangement. I don't know. I mean, certainly we're interested in having peace, because already over 1 million people dead or wounded, mostly in Russia, but then many in Ukraine as well. And Ryan, I really value the contribution of New Zealand government in support of Ukraine. Personally, I'm very thankful to Prime Minister Christopher Luxon for his commitment, for being part of the coalition of the willing, and for the assistance that's been provided actually by both governments, the Labour government and this coalition government, in support of Ukraine since the outbreak of this war.
Mr. Ambassador, I know last time you were here at the desk with me, we talked about the incredible, and it's not something that an industry you wanted to get into, but the drone technology that Ukraine and the capacity that Ukraine now has to produce them. And you were here talking to our Defence Minister and a whole bunch of others. Where did you get to with that? Was there interest from our government in perhaps purchasing some?
Absolutely. The New Zealand government is very keen to learn more about new technology in Ukraine, because development in the past 3 years has been staggering. What we've been able to achieve in the area of innovation, of new technology, modern day technology, is really extraordinary, because of the war, we can test the equipment immediately, and the innovation cycle is now 6 weeks. So we relied on the initial assistance from different partners, including from New Zealand, Australia, America, and other countries. But once we've sent that equipment to the battlefield, we got the feedback immediately. Then we improved the technology. And guess what? 6 months later, 12 months later, it's already new technology. We own it, we produce it, we'll be the major powerhouse of new autonomous systems globally, and we will be happy to locate our production in New Zealand, in Australia, to cater to your needs, because I think any new defense ministry, any defense ministry globally should be buying and stocking up on that new technology which Ukraine has developed. The problem is Ukraine is not the only one who has it. Now Russia has it, and now North Koreans have it, and Iran has it. And of course, China is benefiting from that experience, watching and helping Russia produce some of that equipment.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that we'll be working with like-minded countries like New Zealand, making sure that your defense has the most state-of-the-art, drones, underwater drones, on-the-ground robots, or drones, flying drones, and definitely we have demonstrated that how the warfare has changed, and it really has changed. And I'm not sure anybody is actually ready for that. I mean, you need to learn from us, and we'll be happy to share that.
Just finally, on a personal level, I know you hope for a ceasefire and then a peace deal. And what does your gut tell you? Do you think we're close?
I'm not in the business of making predictions, Ryan. I'm an ambassador to New Zealand. My job is to convey a message. Of course, if you ask me personally, I'm a human being. I just got back from Ukraine 2 weeks ago. I experienced 2 major attacks while being in Kyiv. And let me tell you, it was extremely confronting. My apartment is on the 17th floor, and it's July in Kyiv, and you wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, you hear these loud explosions, you don't really know what's going on, you just pray it's not going to hit your house, because that missile, which hit a building just 10 days ago, it killed 31 people, including kids and women, everybody who was in that residential building. Kyiv is a city of 2.5 million people. Half of New Zealand lives in the capital of Ukraine, and they experience these attacks now every 3 or 4 days. My daughter is currently in Kyiv doing an internship, and she's already seen several major attacks at Kyiv. This is a very confronting experience. I don't want any New Zealander to ever hear those explosions above their houses.
Mr. Ambassador, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for being with me as always. That is Vasyl.
Thanks for having me.
Vasyl Miroshnichenko, the Ukrainian ambassador to Australia and New Zealand, joining us from Canberra. It is 17 minutes after 8. That meeting, by the way, between President Zelensky and Trump, along with Starmer, von der Leyen, Macron's going, Merz of Germany, basically half of Europe's leaders are getting on a plane and heading to Washington. That will be tomorrow morning our time. We'll bring you news and updates tomorrow morning here on Herald Now. Next, the head of Airways New Zealand on those weekend disruptions. Then the panel is with us this morning. Simon Bridges and Sarah Henry take on the issues of the day.
Are you considering a DIY kitchen but just not sure if you can do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. With You Do It DIY Kitchens, you're in safe hands. And the customer support team really know their stuff. After all, they design and manufacture everything here in New Zealand. You do it and you save money. So choose You Do It, the affordable DIY Kiwi kitchen with a great reputation. Visit newsroom.co.nz.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning. Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, you've got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
I'm Hayden Scott and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life I was a chef, did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Ah, here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference, but 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Welcome back. Just gone 20 after 8. An air traffic control technical fault caused disruption to air sector services on Saturday. Planes in the sky disrupted, closed the Oceania airspace and forced trans-Tasman flights to circle off the New Zealand coasts. So, what on earth went wrong? James Young is Airways New Zealand CEO with us this morning. James, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. So it was an hour, basically, wasn't it, from 4:30 till 5:30-ish? What's the technical fault? Do you know yet exactly what it was?
Airways operates a modern air traffic control system for the country. These types of faults are incredibly rare. The fault itself presented itself at 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. And impacted flights between Australia and New Zealand. The actual fault itself relates to the flight information data transfer from one system to the next. We observed that was not working as it should, and our air traffic controllers took measures to restrict or control traffic flows at that time. 4 aircraft were held on the ground. There were 5 aircraft that were actually airborne that went into a hold for about 40 minutes. 3 of those returned to origin and 2 of those continued on their journey.
James, where does the data come from?
It comes from flight plans that are lodged by aircraft, by airlines.
And so that data, was there a fault at their end or at your end or in the transfer of the data?
It looks like, so we need to investigate. We've begun that process now. It looks like it's a system issue, and it's linked into the transfer of the data.
Right.
I don't have much more to say about it at this point, and that is the subject
Fair
of the
enough.
investigation.
There's a backup system you mentioned. How long did it take for that to kick in?
Well, the system itself was more or less immediate, but we then need to go through data checks to make sure that all of those flight plans are correctly loaded into the new system. So we activated that process at about 4:30. We also continued to remediate the fault on the primary system. As it turned out, the primary system was stood back up fairly quickly after about 25 minutes. And then we go through our normal process to return it to service again.
So even if you've got a backup system, you have to double check because there could be a problem with the data that's given.
We do. I mean, the system has multiple layers of resilience and redundancy built into it. So if there was a failure at one point, we normally have another system or that we can fail over to, which is what we were working through at the time. But it's not an immediate failover. It does take time to stand up reserve or contingent systems.
Are you considering, or have you had requests for compensation for airlines?
I have reached out to the airlines and we've acknowledged the disruption that this fault has caused and apologised for it. We have not had any further discussions at this point.
Have they requested compensation or raised it?
No, they haven't.
Would you consider it?
Look, I think that's a conversation that we would have to have at some point down the track, but that is not normal. It's a very complex system, the aviation system. There's lots of different parts. At this stage, that's not a consideration.
Herald Now has spoken to a number of pilots about this. Why couldn't TIBA, which is, from my understanding, where aircraft talk to themselves, why couldn't that be activated, allowing aircraft to separate themselves in oceanic airspace with coordination from Brisbane, for example?
So the issue was the handoff point from moving outside of New Zealand's airspace into the oceanic airspace. For those aircraft that were en route to Australia, we held them on the ground or we held them in the air. For the en route aircraft to Brisbane, the aircraft were instructed just to hold their current flight trajectory, flight path. We did not process any requests to deviate flight path or altitude or speed. But they were eventually handed off to the Australian Air Traffic Control.
Closing airspace, well, essentially closing airspace, a serious, very serious thing, especially for an hour. Is there a risk that planes could crash into each other in a case like that?
No, so we didn't close the airspace. We still had communications verbally with aircraft, and we also had visual sight of aircraft. There was no safety risk at any time that was being managed. And we didn't close the airspace either. We just restricted traffic movements.
Why did some planes have to come back when others could carry on?
We were holding those aircraft inside New Zealand's airspace. So that is a different operating platform which was completely unaffected by the error or the issue. So they were held until we had addressed the issue on the oceanic platform and that those aircraft could then safely travel or continue with their journey.
Okay. James, really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much for being with me.
Thank you.
James Young, Airways New Zealand CEO, time 26 after 8. Our panel this morning, Simon Bridges, former politician, of course, Auckland Business Chamber CEO, and Sarah Henry, our Media Editorial Director. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you both. Geez,
Good to see you.
You would be a bit worried, wouldn't you, when you're in a plane and then you hear something's going on down there? Bit freaky?
Yeah, not ideal.
Not ideal.
Not ideal for the morning commute.
No. Right, Trump and Putin. Did you see that press conference on the weekend, Simon? Bits of it. It wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. I mean, I assumed that they would take questions, and that's where things get a bit spicy with Trump. But just hearing overnight some of these developments, like potentially Putin's open to allowing, not that it's his call, but would do a deal which included the Americans doing an Article 5 NATO-type backstop for Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it's very fluid. It's hard to know exactly what happened in the meeting and what it all means. I think, I sit there. Well, firstly, I hope that Trump isn't getting played by Putin, right? Which, I think was the best we can do. I think actually Trump, in fairness to him, because I think in New Zealand media we're often not entirely fair to the guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's the second coming or anything. He's got a lot of issues, but I think. He has got better on Ukraine. I think the other thing I'd just say is, you made the point earlier, he's got Europe and so on coming in to see him in the next 24 hours. I mean, I would think they will really slow him down. He does seem a bit the last person he's talked to on this issue is where he's kind of at. Yeah. And so I'm not saying that's good enough, but I do think I still have hope about all of this from a Ukraine perspective.
Yeah. And Sarah, the other thing about, and I can completely understand where the ambassador's coming from, who we had on earlier, like, this guy's a war criminal and a dictator, but
All true.
You kind of do have to talk, don't you, in order to get anywhere, I suppose.
Well, 100%. What they've been doing up till this point hasn't resulted in any kind of great outcome. Look, I think Trump really wants to be the guy that stops the war, right? I think that's his motivation. And I think Putin will be sitting back with his popcorn, just watching this meeting roll out and thinking, this will be interesting how this is gonna roll. And I think the two of them are megalomaniacs, and they're loving every minute of it.
And I have no empathy whatsoever for Putin, right, at any level. But you also think, you remember this guy, all the incentives are on him are at a level to keep this going.
Totally.
You know, but he possibly has real issues for himself personally.
It's his grip on the Kremlin, right?
Correct. So all of that. And I do think, and I hear what you're saying, look, I don't think you could say megalomaniac and Trump don't go together. But I do think what's also true, what's interesting with both Gaza and this one, Trump does seem to, it's just interesting watching him. Look, he doesn't seem to be a warmonger. He hates death and kind of all of that stuff. So look, you know, I'm sort of in the category, given the benefit of the doubt for having these meetings. You'd argue that it was a good thing for Putin did it, but let's have some hope on this.
And also, he's in the self-interest camp. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize. And the deadline is looming. Right, let's talk about our debt here in New Zealand. In about 3 years' time, this is a really good series that's been published by the Herald. You can check it out, nzherald.co.nz from today, on our debt. We're nearing $1 trillion. Just sounds like so much bloody money, doesn't it, Sarah?
It's one of those numbers that you can't even comprehend, right? You just keep adding a Z onto it or another O, and because it just doesn't seem kind of real. But the thing is, it's like when you borrow, you want progress or you want an outcome from that. And I feel like that's the part that we're not
Groundhog
getting.
Day.
The bang for the buck that's coming from that massive debt just doesn't seem to kind of be there. We're just treading water. And I think that's the kind of concerning thing. And you can apply that to your own home lending, or you can apply it to the country's lending, right? We are just cruising along and the bill's going up.
So it actually, another way of saying it matters what you borrow on, and that was the problem with the Ardern government, right? If you're borrowing it to just kind of do this, you're not getting anything. That's not a good thing. That's spending, not investment. I mean, I've got a slightly gonzo view on this. Debt matters. Public debt matters. If you're a household, you're a business, you're a government. But I do think right now in New Zealand, we're kind of at some levels missing the main thing, the bigger of the two evils, which is we've got a growth problem, right?
You're willing to swallow some debt to get growth.
Personally, I am.
Yeah.
Because I just think in the end, what keeps Kiwis here?
Which keeps you out of step with your colleagues who say, no, wait for the Reserve Bank's...
My former colleagues.
Former colleagues, sorry.
And I would say, I'm not trying to lump you, but in the media and the general view of life at the moment. That's why I just feel I've got to push my little thing here, because I do think in the end, hey, I'm not for debt. But public debt in New Zealand is actually pretty low in comparison with the US and Europe. It's not to say we should go at it, but I do think right now we've got a bigger of two evils issue, which is growth. Corporate tax relief, some of these things to get things going would make a. You're not going to.
You're sounding a little bit like Grant Robertson, though.
No, it's very different, because I'd spend it on business to get things G'd up, to get things going, to create jobs. His record wasn't doing that, would be my view.
Have you heard of the Gen Z steer, Sarah?
Well, not until this morning, Ryan.
Really?
Yes.
So the Gen Z
experienced
steer,
it.
you
have.
Yes. So this is, where's Zach? He's gone. Oh, there he is. So
does he do it?
No, don't smile, Zach. That's not it. Yeah, just miserable face. So it's this thing.
He looks a bit aspirational.
He's too happy. He's a bad example this morning, but it's where it's on TikTok, so it must be real. Where when particularly in a customer service type role, which we've all done when we were younger, and you're taught, smile and be polite and go and ask questions, blah blah blah. Whereas now you walk into a clothing shop and they just sort of stare at you like you're an alien and don't really want to know anything about you. Do you think there's something in this, or do you think this is just a bit of hype?
Oh, look, I'm always reticent to be that person that's like, the next generation, they're letting us all down, because I think that's always...
Oh, of course they are.
Go on.
Of course they are.
Along the way, you get tagged with the boomer thing if you're putting that forward.
Because they're not drinking or having sex, isn't that right?
Exactly.
It's all these things. They're
clearly miserable.
They're on a pity party, joy germs. They need to... It is a definite thing. I've definitely experienced it. It's not universal though, to be fair. I agree. It's more of a sort of I would say it's a Ponsonby Britomart too cool for school kind of thing.
Oh, you're so Auckland right now.
So the Ponsonby Gen Zers aren't getting laid.
I don't know. I don't. I'm just saying to you, and I don't think they understand. I won't. Maybe you're. I'm not going to come back. I want a bit of charm. I want a bit of romance. The service is half the thing when you're eating out.
Yeah. I think if you message them some banter or maybe send a meme or something, you'll 100% get a reaction there, right?
It's funny you say that. Well, we talked about it on the radio this morning, and so many people messaged in to say, just wear a T-shirt with emojis.
Yeah.
Or,
exactly.
And you'll probably get a better response.
But actually, my wife would say, Natalie, there are another half of them that are out there that are uber friendly. Everything's like chirpy and amazing, and it's too much, and it's kind of so there is this. I mean, there is this balance to be had.
And now we sound like boomers.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
All three of us.
I'm ex.
I know, we're both ex, but we sound like boomers.
All right, we'll leave you boomers there. Sarah Henry, our media editorial director, and Simon Bridges, Auckland Business Chamber CEO. You're watching Herald Now. Here's Neva with headlines.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
We are well on our way to a collective $1 trillion in debt. In the year to the end of May, New Zealand hit just over $870 billion in gross debt, up 5.4% from almost $830 billion last year. It represents an average of just over $160,000 in raw debt for every person in the country. At the current rate of growth, New Zealand will hit the $1 trillion landmark inside the next 3 years. That rate has eased in the past 2 years as the government has sought to curb borrowing and the housing market has been flat. Correction staff say gangs are making prison violence worse and harder to deal with. On Saturday afternoon, 11 inmates in Waikato's Spring Hill prison refused to leave an exercise yard, setting several small fires on the property. It took 2 hours for staff to secure the prisoners and extinguish the fires. Corrections Association President Floyd du Plessis is asking the government for equipment like launchers for handling violence.
Those are the types of things that we could use at distance to bring these things to a close very quickly and controlled and without risk of any injury to both staff and prisoners.
A Far North police officer is claiming racism and poor culture within the force is leading many Northland cops to leave. 90 extra police officers have travelled to the region to help relieve pressure. An anonymous officer has revealed an example of what they call systemic racism in the force. An email accidentally sent to all Northland staff by another cop describes an alleged offender in derogatory terms. District Commander Superintendent Matthew Surhoy says the email was highly unprofessional but maintains culture has never been better. 5 unions are attempting to take the government to court over pay equity changes. The Nurses Organisation, Public Service Association and 3 education unions are lodging a High Court challenge later this month over the government raising the threshold to lodge pay equity claims. PSA National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimon says they're asking for a declaration of inconsistency with the Bill of Rights Act.
If we are successful in gaining that, then there will be a report to Parliament and select committee consideration. It should never have come to this.
A foreign affairs expert says Donald Trump played into Vladimir Putin's hands at an Alaska summit over the weekend. The US and Russian presidents had a 3-hour discussion Saturday morning, but it did not result in a ceasefire in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is now scheduled to meet Trump in Washington, D.C. in the coming days. Otago University's Professor of International Relations, Robert Patman, says the pair will make little progress on their own. He says Trump must come to terms with the fact Putin will not stop the invasion unless he's forced to.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Another week and another round of wintry weather with snow down to low levels tomorrow. We'll have a cold southerly flow too, but today the weather comes from a couple of fronts moving northeast, bringing rain for the lower south. Persistent and heavy at times, but easing later today. Winds will be from the southwest and quite strong tonight for Southland. Now, most will eventually have rain here, developing first out west but reaching the east and north during the afternoon. Winds end up from the southwest. It's cloudy for the lower North Island. Showers arrive everywhere from around midday. Some heavy ones too, even thundery with hail for Taranaki and Taumaranui. Now the morning is the better half of the day here, with showers returning this afternoon and spreading east tonight. Could be some heavy showers as well, with west to northwest winds. And showers for the upper north too. There is the risk of thunderstorms and hail for everyone here. Northwest winds pick up as well, gusting 90 k's with those thunderstorms tonight for Auckland.
And you're watching Herald Now. It's great to have your company this Monday morning, just gone 22 minutes away from 9 o'clock. 17-year-old Rutendo Shidea is a self-published author from Tokoroa who's been recognised as one of Time magazine's Girls of the Year. Wow. The list features 10 extraordinary young leaders from around the world between the ages of 12 and 17 who were nominated for their global impact. Rutendo wrote her first book at the age of 9 and now has 3 published novels following the adventures of Rachel and her friends. Rutendo is with us now from Tokoroa. Rutendo, good morning. Morena, nice to have you on the show.
Morning, good morning. Nice to have you. Nice to be featured.
Hey, congratulations. What an amazing achievement.
Thank you. It's really honouring to get this achievement, considering how hard I've worked in the past five years since I started. Since I self-published my first book, Rachel and the Enchanted Forest in 2020. So it's really amazing to see this progress.
How did you get, so you were 9 when you wrote your first, or started to write your first book. Why? How?
So I started writing when I was 9 because, well, I actually hated writing because any subject I wasn't good at, I instantly just didn't like. So back then, writing wasn't my favorite subject. But at the same time, my friend's birthday was coming up and I knew she loved writing. She had a book club with her friends and they would read stories and stuff. And I wanted to give her the best birthday present. And I was like, why don't I write a book for her? It would be such a cool present. And I was like, despite me not liking writing, I'm going to do this for my best friend, because we had been friends, I think since I moved to Tokoroa when I was a baby. And so I decided to write for her. I didn't know what to write, but I wrote based on what I watched on TV, the books I read. And through that, it took me 2 months to write this first draft, and I completed it 2 days after my birthday. And then I had to try and convince my parents to get a bit on board, because they thought I was just joking, because no one would really believe a 9-year-old saying, I want to write a book. But after getting them on board, this journey took 2 years, and I managed to give my friend her birthday present 2 years late on November. And since then, I decided writing isn't that bad after all. And then I self-published 2 books later on.
What's your friend's name?
Sophie. Her name's Sophie.
Sophie. Did she like the book? I hope she did.
Yeah, she loved the present. She was surprised. She didn't even know that I would do something crazy like that. So, yeah.
What are your books about?
So they're a series. So the first book is about Rachel. Her sister gets, so she has to look for her sister. She gets lost, and Rachel finds her at this forest. And it's not any kind of forest. It's a magical forest. And within this forest, she finds these elves around her sister, and they tell her that she has this connection to them. And through there, they work on this journey they work together, and Rachel realizes why she's connected to this forest and stuff. And then in the second book, it's a follow-up. She's friends with these elves. They are kind of like a friend group, like a superhero group. So they go on this journey to find these missing jewels, and they fight dragons, pirates, and pirates on the way to find these jewels, and they have to try and find it in a short time slot. And then in the latest book that I had that I self-published this year, it's about Rachel because she has this bit of a crisis, a power crisis. So she has this power crisis. She's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Her powers start going out of control while they're trying. And then there's this thief stuff happening in the third book. So Rachel learns how to navigate her powers going out of control while fighting on a mission to try and stop the scheme of thieves happening in the Enchanted City. So those are what the 3 books are based on.
Where do you come up with this stuff?
I usually usually go on what I'm based off to, or like whatever my mind just pops up with. Like sometimes I'll be watching something or like reading something, like maybe an article. I'll make it based on a like fantasy type of idea, and it's really, I just base it onto that, and it's like kind of just interesting. Sometimes I base it on TV shows, sometimes I base it on interactions, and I'm like, oh, I could add that into my book. I could add that characteristic into one of my book characters, and it's really cool.
The Time magazine nominate, how did all of that come about? And does it mean anything? Does it change anything for you?
So the Time magazine reached out to me, like they wanted to do an interview, like to see, like just an interview to see how I was. And I was like, oh, interesting. I kind of didn't know if this was real, like, cause you know, Time magazine, these people, like they put Women's of the Year, like Men of the Year. And I'm like, oh, okay. So after like I got a bit of a nudge, I decided to do it. And the interview went really well. And then I got told that Lego was working with us. And I was like, oh my gosh, I used to play with Lego a lot, and it was a huge staple in my childhood. Like I used to play when we first got an Xbox with my brother, we had this game, and it was like a Lego game, and we'd always face this and would do like a teamwork together, and it was like based on Marvel. So like Lego it was exciting to work with Lego, and they did this She Built campaign. And I feel like working with Time in this and like knowing the impact of the Girls of the Year, it does mean a lot to me, because, you know, it's like, you know, being a young girl, it's kind of hard because you can get discriminated a little bit. I've faced ageism in my journey, and like I feel like seeing this, like starting from a small girl from a small town and going into this and hitting international stages is such an amazing achievement. And I feel like it inspires many young people to go into writing or achieve their dreams, because they see someone doing this, they see 10 young girls representing them all over the world. And I feel like this is a good change into me, because it encourages me and empowers me to keep on doing things like this.
Rutindo, you mentioned ageism, but I just keep thinking, how are you 17? It's insane. One day you'll be is the plan to be an author full time? Is that your dream?
So I'm planning to do like something in sciences, but I don't want to make writing like my full time, because I don't want to separate it into something I love. I want to have it as a passion still. I want to try and do that part time, explore into hybrid, like going into traditional publishing. But after school, I plan to do something in sciences, hopefully. And through there, I want to also do side projects. Like last year I got given money from Creative New Zealand to do this project that I've always been wanting to do, where I published 10 stories and 10 pieces of art from kids around the South Waikato. So I want to do more projects like this, because this encourages young people to go into writing and arts, and like their stories will be published into a book, and like it'll be launched, and it encourages people to go into that journey. And I hope that I could do that and also finish my series as well.
So cool. If people want to buy your books, can they? Where can they do it?
So they can buy from Paper Plus, Rotorua. They have my first and second book. You can message me through my social medias, Rotundo's Books, Instagram and Facebook. You can also get it for Books for Kids in Hamilton. And I have 2 of my books in the Hamilton Library, like Hamilton City Library. And if you're on Tokoro, you can get it into the Tokoro Library. I have 2 of my books there, and those are where you can get my books.
Hey, congratulations, Rutindo, and thank you so much for being with me. I've just been told that I've made you late for school because you're meant to be there at 1:45. Sorry about that. I'm sure your teachers will forgive you. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
That's Rutindo Shadea, author and Time Magazine Girl of the Year. It makes that whole discussion about Gen Z face seem a bit ridiculous now, doesn't it? 14 minutes away from 9. Now, to answer the age-old question, who's a good boy? Finalists have been selected for this year's Top Dog competition. Voting is open, and here to tell us more about it is Shannon Barlow, Managing Director from Frog Recruitment. Shannon, good morning.
Morning.
Good to have you on the show. So tell us about this. What are you looking for? What's going on?
Well, it's definitely a competition that's open for all our four-legged friends across the motu. So we've got dogs in from Invercargill way up to the top of the north. And it's really about, it started out, this is our 10th year. for NZ Top Dog, and it started out looking at well-being in the workplace, and we found that having a dog in the office really has lots of benefits. So boosting morale, can be a calming presence. Not my dog, but other dogs can be a calming presence. And we started it up from there, and have just been amazed with the different entries, literally hundreds of entries each year.
So it's not working dogs, it's dogs in the workplace?
It's both. So we have a couple of categories. So we have top office dog, and we have top dog with a job. And the ever popular People's Choice as well, so everyone can get in on that one.
Our bosses won't let us bring dogs into this office.
Oh, boo.
Which, does everyone think that's stink? Yeah. Everyone would love to have a dog. I would love to have my dog here. So just to say that again, and quite loudly, what does it do for morale?
It boosts, it boosts. No, there's lots of research to back it up, but I think when you do have the opportunity to have some good-natured dogs in the office, it really does lift things, reduces stress, and it's been proven to reduce absenteeism as well. So if you're trying to bring people back into the office, having a furry friend there could be a good way to do that.
Love it. So, how do people vote, and what are we actually voting on?
Sure. So we've gone through. So we've had hundreds of entries again this year, and we've narrowed that down to the finalists for each of the categories. The people can vote on People's Choice. So if you, there's a dedicated website, but if you search hashtag NZ Top Dog, that will get you there, and you can vote for your favourite.
Brilliant. We're just seeing some of the cute little faces now. Thank you very much for filling us in, Shannon. We appreciate that. Shannon Barlow, Managing Director from Frog Recruitment. And we are going to go now to Katie Oliver from the Herald, who's with one of the finalists, Jamie, the certified conservation dog, and trainer Brian Shields. Katie, good morning. Come in.
Good morning, Ryan.
So, what do you got there?
Yes, I am here. So I am here with Jamie, the English Springer Spaniel, and she's one of the top dog finalists. I'm also here with Brian. So Brian, what makes Jamie the top dog?
She's really good at what she does. She's one of the few dogs that can find ants in an invasive species that we've got here in New Zealand. She's just a really chilled and cool dog.
But she's not just, eradicating harmful ants from the environment. She's also huge for conservation, right?
Yeah. So she's a fully certified conservation dog. She can work amongst all our endangered animals and do her job. And she's a really good ambassador to educate people on, the invasive ants that she gets. People like seeing the dogs working in the environment, and they always ask what she does, and then you've sort of got a captured audience around explain to people what she does, and people are amazed that a dog can find ants.
And she can detect like a singular ant, or?
I could, one ant, she's trained on the pheromone that they make. We've got quite a power, all ants have got a signature and a real powerful, pheromone, and she's trained on that, so you could have one ant somewhere and she could find it, yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive. And I guess going forward, what's your plan for her? What would you like Jamie to continue doing?
Well, I think just working in the environment. She's a really good ambassador for the conservation efforts that we put in to eradicate ants. We're trying to eradicate ants off a couple of islands, and we just don't want them getting out there. It's really expensive for the ratepayer. We do a lot of quarantine work for gear going out, like contract stuff. People going out there to do different things, and we'll put Jamie over that and make sure ants aren't getting transported out to the pest-free islands.
So how dangerous are these ants? How bad are we talking?
Well, they're in the 100 most invasive species in the world. They're really
Looks like we might have a little technical problem hearing Katie there, along with Jamie, the wee Springer Spaniel. Very cute indeed. We'll leave them to it. It looks like he's got a busy day ahead. That's Biosecurity Advisor from Auckland Council, Brian Shields, Jamie the Springer Spaniel, and Katie Oliver. 8 minutes away from 9, and it's time to talk business thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. A2 Milk has just announced a major deal to buy a milk processing plant in New Zealand. Garth Bray, Business Desk, here with the latest. Garth, good morning. What do we know?
Morning, Ryan. Well, this has just dropped on the exchange because A2 had its full year results and it's posted a pretty healthy profit and earnings figure as well. We can get to that in a second. But the big news really is that it's confirmed what it's going to do with its $1 billion, more than $1 billion sort of cash, net cash pile, and that's to purchase basically Yashili, which is owned by China's Mingnui Dairy. They've got a processing plant down in Pokeno next door to the Sinlay plant. That was opened about 10 years ago, valued about $220 million. They're paying $282 million to basically get seriously into the game of producing infant milk formula for the Chinese market rather than buying from others and so on. The key thing with this plant is that it has registrations for the China trade that enable it to access a different market from just the e-commerce side. It's a little bit like having a liquor license. And when you buy a bar, you've got the liquor license. It's a license to trade that stays with the premise rather than with the owner. And that's subject to Chinese regulatory approval. That's a very, very lucrative thing. I think David Bortolussi talking about accessing a sort of a $24 billion market with that. And that really steps up, and it probably rewards people's plays and to some extent in A2 Milk, which has jumped. I think the share price has jumped about 40% this year. So that's the numbers that came back, pretty convincing numbers too. I think we were looking about
more than 200 million, the after-tax net profit, right?
Yeah.
Which is up massively.
Yeah, 158, I think, last year. So big jump in profit, big jump in revenue, I think up about 13% to closing on $2 billion, sort of $1.9 billion. And I suppose just probably an indication of how strong the demand is for highly valuable, highly processed milk powders into China, not just for infants, but for some of the older market as well. They've had some success in targeting seniors, but really it's that infant milk formula space that's important. In China, they've announced kind of like a family boost package, basically giving people extra cash to go out and start families or to cut the cost of having a family to encourage people to have more kids. That's likely to be sort of positive for anyone that's trying to sell stuff aimed at infants.
And we know that the Kiwi brand is very strong, and if you're dealing with children, you're dealing with infants, then you want something that's trustworthy. So those are all positives in terms of the outlook, but we also have the trade war, and there's fears about what that might do to the Chinese economy. They have an ageing population there, all those things. Did they give an indication of outlook going forward?
Yeah, well, I guess some of the outlook stuff there is that they're still hoping that will be the strategy that they're following really lets them make the most of whatever is there and available to them, and you'd have to argue that that's a pretty sensible play. I mean, the numbers out of China most recently, I think Friday we had some GDP numbers there, and they were talking about, I guess, a much sort of softer position there, that the activity there was weaker. The retail sales grew by 3.7 year on year, and that was down from 4.8 in the previous month. So some signs that things are slow a little bit there at the moment. You'd imagine A2 and others are going to be looking through that and saying, down the pipeline, how can we grab more? They're, I think, currently about the number 4 brand over there in their market. They want to try and push into that top 3.
Yeah, if you're buying a plant, you're looking long term, aren't you? That's cool.
And 100-odd jobs, extra jobs in Pokeno probably as a result of this, although they are selling a plant down in Gore to open country dairy to enable all of this to happen, to free up some cash. So big changes in the milk and the dairy industry today.
Indeed, and a great result for A2. Thanks, Garth. Garth Bray, Business Desk. We chat to Garth from Business Desk every day, thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. Time now is 4 minutes away from 9. Can I just do a quick shout out to Guy Sebastian, who we had on the show the other day. Actually, this is a shout out to the PR people who have kindly sent one of his records to us, which is very cool. I don't have a record player, so that's probably, I'll give it to someone else, someone who does. But a great follow-up from you, PR team, whoever you are, well done. 4 away from 9 now. If you want to win a trip to Japan, who doesn't? This is thanks to the New Zealand Herald and Inspiring Vacations. It's a once-in-a-lifetime prize. It includes return flights, accommodation, guided tours. This is for 2 people. The value, more than $14,000. All you have to do is register on the New Zealand Herald Win page by 5 p.m. September 3rd, so you don't miss your chance for the trip of a lifetime to beautiful Japan, and it really is beautiful, the people and the country. Thanks to the New Zealand Herald and Inspiring Vacations. Of course, T's and C's apply. Right, let's check in with Chelsea, front page. Hey, Chelsea.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Well, are we doing it? Yeah. Are we doing Chelsea? Yeah, we're doing Chelsea. Chelsea, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Do you have a record player? Because I know you love Guy Sebastian. Actually, your mum.
My mum does, yeah. No, there she
what's
goes.
Mum's name again?
Michelle.
Michelle.
So you remember that she met Guy Sebastian on the show. She was very happy.
Well, she'll be happy with that. It's pretty cool. There's actually a note as well. I don't know if he signed it, but I'll give that to her as well. There you go.
He's getting all of
The
press on Herald Now.
Hey, what's the go of the podcast today?
All right, so I spoke to Marama Davidson, the co-leader for the Greens, of course, and sometimes we do these longer chats with politicians, and basically we had a really good chat about how Oranga Tamariki needs to be changed and how we're failing our children in state care. And she said basically we had this entire Abuse and Care Royal Commission of Inquiry and we've taken none of the recommendations from it, which is wild. That lasted years. We spoke to so many experts, so many survivors, and nothing's really happened. So we had a chat about that. She's also got a bill in the biscuit tin at the moment, basically requiring Oranga Tamariki to make sure that a young person leaving their care has suitable accommodation, which I think is wild. That is not a legal requirement at the moment. They can basically, legally, just be like, on your way, see you later. So I spoke to Oranga Tamariki as well, the Transition Support Services National Manager, Sarah Ashton, and she said more than 1,600 young people currently receive support from community-based transition workers contracted by OT. But of course, Marama Davidson says the government's cutting those fundings of those grassroots community-based groups who are helping these kids get into, and I say kids because they're 18, into suitable accommodation when they leave care.
Right, okay. The government argues they're going to do the funding in other ways, etc., but yeah, no doubt that there are some changes coming there. So podcast today available on iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And
as always.
YouTube as well. We're filmed as well.
Oh, there you go. Fancy.
So-
Hey, look, personal question. The hair looks great today.
Oh, stop it!
Have you crinkled it? What have you done to it?
Yeah,
It's like a crinkled
I
chip.
was cleaning up my house at the weekend and I found a crimper. And you know when you're doing, I'm one of those people that are cleaning up and I get distracted by the things I find. You know those photos of people trying to clean up and they've got like a hat on and glasses and stuff? That's me. So mid-cleaning, I found a crimper and I've been crimping my hair all weekend.
Does your cat like you yet? Your rescue cat that you took in that sort of didn't want to even talk to you?
We're making progress. I have to catnap her and hold her hostage, but she does get into the whole, you can see her kind of wiggling down and being like, all right, this is nice.
Slowly wearing it down.
Slowly but surely, chipping away at it.
Very good. She won't recognise you with the crimp cut.
Yeah, maybe. The crimp cut. Yeah, do better, Ryan.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Chelsea, as always. Chelsea Daniels from Front Page Podcast on the Herald. The podcast's up on YouTube, on iHeartRadio, and wherever you listen to your podcast. Here's Neva with headlines.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
We are well on our way to a collective $1 trillion in debt. In the year to the end of May, New Zealand hit just over $870 billion in gross debt, up 5.4% from almost $830 billion last year. It represents an average of just over $160,000 in raw debt for every person in the country. At the current rate of growth, New Zealand will hit the $1 trillion landmark inside the next 3 years. That rate has eased in the past 2 years as the government has sought to curb borrowing and the housing market has been flat. Correction staff say gangs are making prison violence worse and harder to deal with. On Saturday afternoon, 11 inmates in Waikato's Spring Hill Prison refused to leave an exercise yard, setting several small fires on the property. It took 2 hours for staff to secure the prisoners and extinguish the fires. Corrections Association President Floyd du Plessis is asking the government for equipment like launchers for handling violence.
Those are the types of things that we could use at distance to bring these things to a close very quickly and controlled and without risk of any injury to both staff and prisoners.
A Far North police officer is claiming racism and poor culture within the force is leading many Northland cops to leave. 90 extra police officers have travelled to the region to help relieve pressure. An anonymous officer has revealed an example of what they call systemic racism in the force. An email accidentally sent to all Northland staff by another cop describes an alleged offender in derogatory terms. District Commander Superintendent Matthew Surhoy says the email was highly unprofessional but maintains culture has never been better. 5 unions are attempting to take the government to court over pay equity changes. The Nurses Organisation, Public Service Association and 3 education unions are lodging a High Court challenge later this month over the government raising the threshold to lodge pay equity claims. PSA National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimon says they're asking for a declaration of inconsistency with the Bill of Rights Act.
If we are successful in gaining that, then there will be a report to Parliament and select committee consideration. It should never have come to this.
A foreign affairs expert says Donald Trump played into Vladimir Putin's hands at an Alaska summit over the weekend. The US and Russian presidents had a 3-hour discussion Saturday morning, but it did not result in a ceasefire in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is now scheduled to meet Trump in Washington, D.C. in the coming days. Otago University's Professor of International Relations, Robert Patman, says the pair will make little progress on their own. He says Trump must come to terms with the fact Putin will not stop the invasion unless he's forced to.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Chris Wood has scored twice in Nottingham Forest's opening game of the Premier League football season, helping them to a 3-1 home victory over Brentford. Golfer Ryan Fox's PGA Tour season is over. He's carded a final round, 1 under par 69 at the penultimate event in Maryland, but will remain outside the top 30 to contest the Tour Championship in Georgia this week. And the Tall Blacks have finished 4th at basketball's Asia Cup, losing the bronze medal playoff 79-73 to Iran in Saudi Arabia.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Another week and another round of wintry weather with snow down to low levels tomorrow. We'll have a cold southerly flow too, but today the weather comes from a couple of fronts moving northeast, bringing rain for the lower south. Persistent and heavy at times, but easing later today. Winds will be from the southwest and quite strong tonight for Southland. Now, most will eventually have rain here, developing first out west, but reaching the east and north during the afternoon. Winds end up from the southwest. It's cloudy for the lower North Island. Showers arrive everywhere from around midday. Some heavy ones too, even thundery with hail for Taranaki and Taumaranui. Now, the morning is the better half of the day here, with showers returning this afternoon and spreading east tonight. Could be some heavy showers as well, with west to northwest winds. And showers for the upper north too. There is the risk of thunderstorms and hail for everyone here. Northwest winds pick up as well, gusting 90 k's with those thunderstorms tonight for Auckland.
And that's it for us for today. Thanks so much for your company this morning. We'll do it all again tomorrow from 7 o'clock. In the meantime, more news, nzherald.co.nz. Quick thank you to our partners this morning, Forsyth Bar, You Do It, Barkers, Max. There's the Gen Z buggering off. Hey, see you later. 2 Degrees, GJ Gardner, Dilmar and Noel Leeming. From all the team at Herald Now, including Zach, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.